During a trip to Japan a couple years ago, I came across these gacha machines filled with adorable animal figurines. While my main goal was to collect this humpback whale figurine, I tried some other machines and got this charming hermit crab. Since then, he's been sitting on my desk, patiently waiting to be the inspiration behind my next painting. And that day has finally arrived. Hello and welcome, my name is Jason, and today we're going to be creating this painting using gouache. Along the way, I'll be sharing some of my process, some stories, and some fun facts. So, let's get started. The inspiration for this painting may have come from a hermit crab toy, but the journey to this composition began with a 2-year-long endeavor to incorporate a World War II military buoy into my work. 2 years ago, I stumbled across a video essay about buoys used during World War II to aid downed pilots over the English Channel. This fascinating piece of history immediately caught my attention. Alongside my love for animals, I've always been drawn to obscure historical facts, and this story about the buoys was no exception. Inside, pilots would be able to find shelter, food, water, as well as a radio they could use to call for rescue. Above all, the design of these vessels particularly caught my attention. I for some reason was drawn to the bright color scheme and the utilitarian design. From there, I set out to create a composition with the buoy as the centerpiece. Over the years, I've experimented with various layouts, designs, and backgrounds, but none of them felt quite right. Earlier this year, I revisited this concept, creating a color study that I plan to expand into a larger oil painting. Although this study feels more complete than previous attempts, I wasn't quite ready to move on from this motif. I felt compelled to explore it further, blending it into my usual surreal and fantastical style, while weaving it into the world I've been developing throughout my artwork. From there, I used the buoy as the literal foundation for the story I wanted to tell, making it the structure on which the subjects would be situated. This is where my hermit crab enters the story. I knew I wanted some kind of creature to live atop the buoy, and a ginormous hermit crab turned out to be just what I was looking for. My little hermit crab figurine, after all this time, finally got to be the subject of one of my paintings. After sketching the hermit crab, I felt like the composition needed something more. I experimented with several ideas before deciding to place a human figure atop the shell. Initially, I wasn't sure how to connect this painting to the world I've been building throughout my art. However, later, off camera, I had the idea to add a miniature town on the back of the shell. This transformed the crab into the host of one of the nested worlds I discussed in the previous video. From there, I moved on to painting the background, following my usual process of starting with the sky and working my way forward. I used variegated washes when needed, working quickly to ensure smooth transitions by blending areas before paint dried. Achieving clean transitions is one of the most challenging aspects of working with gouache. This is especially true for the intricate transitions of the clouds, which require a mix of techniques to get the desired effect. Since gouache dries quickly, I often had to blend new colors over areas that had already dried. When this happens, I typically use a dry brushing technique, where a separate dry brush is used to soften the edge of the new paint layer over the dried base. While dry brushing doesn't always achieve the same seamless result as a variegated wash, it's a handy technique for when paint dries too quickly. To achieve an accurate depiction of the lighting for this scene, I used the free 3D modeling program called Blender. I positioned a 3D scan of the buoy I found online within the scene that mimicked the desired lighting conditions. Since I knew I wanted to include a hermit crab, I sourced a few shell assets to stand in for the shell, and used a simple cylinder to represent the figure. While the model didn't provide all the lighting details for the final piece, it helped me to establish the distribution between light and shadow, giving me a solid foundation for the image. Before finishing the railing on the buoy, I shifted my focus to the hermit crab. Since the railing sits in front of the crab, I needed to complete everything behind it first. Gouache allows for some layering, making it easier to add the railing afterwards rather than painting them first and having to work around them. To ensure I could still see where to place the railing after applying several layers of paint, I drew them slightly darker than usual. This way, their placement remains visible beneath the slightly transparent paint. A fun fact about hermit crabs is that as they grow, it often requires them to seek out new shells to accommodate their body size. Hermit crabs don't actually grow their own shells, so they have to source one themselves. Several species of hermit crabs actually perform shell exchanges, in which crabs get together and line up in size order, each simultaneously swapping shells in a line, moving from one shell to the next size up. As you can see, this hermit crab shell is home to one of the nested worlds I talked about in the last video. This one in particular is home to an entire village of what could be humans that all live in tiny houses atop the shell. While some nested worlds can be home to civilization, others can be completely barren landscapes. What is certain is that within this world, somewhere within the village, is another creature too small to be seen here, with another world atop it. From there, I moved on to the figure. Since I don't normally incorporate figures into my artwork, this part was especially challenging. Given that I wasn't working from a reference photo, I had to simulate the lighting on the outfit as best as I could. The inspiration for adding this figure comes from my fascination with the cultural phenomena surrounding the Stalker universe. In 1972, Arkady and Boris Tarkovsky wrote the novel Roadside Picnic, which tells of a story of stalkers, individuals who risk their lives to retrieve alien artifacts from mysterious zones where extraterrestrial visitors supposedly landed. These zones are filled with anomalies and strange occurrences, making them perilous for humans. However, one zone is rumored to contain an object capable of granting its finder their deepest desire. In 1979, Andrei Tarkovsky adapted the novel into the film Stalker. The film follows a stalker as he leads a writer and a professor into a zone, seeking a place that can fulfill their deepest wishes. After the Chernobyl disaster, the book and film inspired local youth to sneak into the exclusion zone, referring to themselves as stalkers. The idea grew so popular that game developers later created a series of video games that reimagined the story within the context of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, further cementing the legacy of this narrative. In my imagined universe, I like to think there are individuals akin to stalkers, but instead of seeking alien artifacts, their mission is to discover the hidden, nested worlds within their reality. Though as far as we know, there is no way to physically transport oneself into a nested world, these thrill seekers dedicate their lives to exploring the globe in search of these mysterious wonders. And with the last finishing touches on the figure, I can call this painting complete. I've been holding on to these concepts for quite some time now, and I'm thrilled to finally have put them together into a piece that I enjoy. For a few years now, I've tried to incorporate this buoy into a painting, and I'm finally happy to say I'm ready to put this inspiration to rest. Regardless, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.